You can pay your bills, see a doctor, and buy a car all from your cell phone. So how would you feel if you could also vote through your phone? That's the goal one advocate is wanting, and he wrote all about it in his book. Author of Vote with Your Phone, Bradley Tusk, is joining me live to explain. Hey, good morning.
Hey, how are you?
Good, doing well, thank you. So tell us about your concept of mobile voting. Tell me what is it?
Yeah, basically it's like the way you would vote, say, by mail, but instead it's simply over your phone, the ballot pops up, you make your choices, it's encrypted, goes to the Board of Elections, they take it offline, they decrypt it, they print out a paper copy, it goes in with the rest of the votes. It is a secure way to vote, but the reason we need to do it is twofold. One, we should just make it as easy as possible for everyone to vote. Think about like the hurricane right now and all the people who are being displaced from their homes because of climate emergencies. They can't vote in person right now. They can't vote by mail, but wherever they're going, their phone is already with them. But beyond that, we live in a world where, because turnout in most elections is so low, the people who do vote tend to be the extremes. And that could be the far left, that could be the far right, that could be big special interests who control money and votes. And as a result, they not only decide who wins office, but then what people do once they're in office. And so we either get total dysfunction like we see in Washington, D.C., or totally one-sided governments, and that could be on the right or the left. But in my view, none of that's good. And we're not going to solve our problems unless we can push politicians to the middle and start working together.
Well, I get it. I mean, a lot of people argue that the way that we vote is a little bit of an outdated system. It requires somebody having transportation to get to a place and then wait in lines. And we do everything from our cell phones now. So it would seem that that's the direction it's going, but that does pose a lot of security risks. So what are some of the ways in your book that you explain how this could be a secure way to vote?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and by the way, the book describes not just what could be done, but we've been running and funding the mobile voting project since 2017, and we have been building technology that has multi-factor authentication, biometric screening like Clear at the airports. It is encrypted. It is end-to-end verifiable. It is air-gapped, so nothing is online when the ballot is decrypted. And it's open source, which means that the code can be checked and audited and verified at all times, and we're making this free to the government. This is being done out of the Mobile Voting Project, which is part of my foundation, Tusk Philanthropies. We have self-funded this thing entirely, and the idea is to give this away free to any government that wants to use it, and give them the opportunity to give people an additional way to vote. Doesn't replace voting in person or voting by mail, but if voting by phone works better for you, we've got to meet people where they are.
Okay, well, I've got a copy of your book in my hand now, so we can show people what they're looking for if they head out to buy it. But obviously, you've got a lot of skeptics also. Can you tell us about the skeptics' concerns and how you're?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of two layers of skeptics, right? So the first are, I think, people who are well-intentioned and they're just afraid that something could go wrong. And look, no system is ever fully bulletproof. But I think, one, there's a lot of vulnerabilities with the way we currently vote, whether it's hanging chads on paper ballots or mail trucks getting lost that have ballots. So I would argue that what we've built is actually significantly more secure than the existing ways of voting. Two, we can't keep going like this. We're at a place where our country is so polarized and so dysfunctional that if we don't do something to bring everything back to the middle, we're not going to last even as one country eventually, because we can't get anything done and we can't get along. And so the first thing is, you can't just bury your head in the sand and do nothing. The second thing is the critics who currently have power, right? So if you are a politician and you know how to win under the current system, you're not going to want to make it easier for someone to come around and challenge you. If you are the teachers unions or the NRA or some big special interest, and you can control low turnout primaries because all of a sudden your money and your members have a disproportionate impact on the outcome, you're not going to want to see higher turnout. So everyone who's currently in power, the entire status quo, is probably going to oppose this, and that's going to make it very difficult to pass this in cities and states all over the country. But every movement in American history has had to stand up to the status quo and overcome it, whether it's the Women's Right to Vote or the Civil Rights Act or the Voting Rights Act or the Americans with Disabilities Act or anything else. And that's how we win our rights in this country, and that's how we make things better.
Yeah, and we're making the assumption that more people would vote if cell phone voting were an option. I mean, because pretty much everybody has access to a cell phone. But in your book, you also talk about if you don't have access to a cell phone or broadband internet or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't look, that's why we should. My view is we should have every form of voting possible. Vote by mail should be available to everyone. In-person voting should be available to everyone. Mobile voting should be available to everyone. Let's just make it as easy as possible. But like you said, 97% of Americans under the age of 50 have a smartphone. 75% of Americans over the age of 65 have a smartphone. So the vast, vast majority of people do, and that number only keeps going up and up. But if we can layer that in on top of the ways that we currently vote, we can get participation up there. And the reason why this matters so much is politicians do whatever they need to do to stay in office. Their goal is to keep their job. And if that means catering to the extremes, whether it's the far left or the far right, that's what they're going to do. But if a lot more people are voting in their elections, especially in their primaries, then all of a sudden things shift to the center. And that gives them the incentive and the political cover to start working together, to start compromising. And that's how we actually get things done.
All right, Bradley Tusk, we're running out of time in this interview, so just tell everybody what you want them to know about maybe where they can find the book or what they need to know about the book.
You can find the book on Amazon or anywhere where you get your books. And if you're interested in mobile voting itself, if you go to mobilevoting.org, you can learn how to volunteer and get involved.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Vote with your phone. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.